There it is. It's hidden. Did that work? Okay, sorry. We started recording, which I should have started at the beginning. Gosh, I'm a Zoom rookie. We've been doing this for so long. Okay, so there's the eligibility. That's what we wanted to talk about relative to COVID-19. Does anybody have any questions or for myself or for Councilman Solomon on this particular subject?
Do you know where, this is Danny speaking, do you know where they are in the vaccination list? Like what categories?
Yes, so that's the phase 1A, 1B, 1C that I was showing here. So on the covid19.nj.gov, there's an FAQ section which talks about where they are, who's currently eligible. This was updated 4 days ago. Currently, it's phase 1A and 1B.
And they would have emailed you because if you registered locally, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, they're just facing a shortage of the actual vaccinations, and that's why they're stuck in 1A.
Oh, so they haven't even gotten the B yet.
Right.
No, they're in B. So people from B have received the email and are able to get an appointment. But to Mark's point, appointments are difficult to come by. What we've seen is, so for those of you that have vehicles, the site in Kearney is a drive-through site. It's in one of those old, Kearney used to be an old shipbuilding yard. It built ships as early as World War I and really came into its own in World War II, where it was building a significant amount of armored ships for the wartime effort. And that's now a site that's full of these massive hangars that have gantry cranes in them. And one of them is owned by the county and they've restored it in its entirety. So that particular site has its own website where you can go and sign up. And that is there, see, already in my thing, hudsoncovidvax.org. And this is the site in Kearney. This is the drive-through site. And again, they're reiterating on this page that you need to have one of these conditions currently to sign up. And if you do, you can just click through here and sign up to get your appointment. The experience, as I understand it, is quite pleasant. You queue up with a number of vehicles outside of, again, this massive hangar building that has huge, polycarbonate garage doors that you're in line, doors go up, you drive in. They come to you outside of as you sit outside and ask you to take your coat off, be prepared to get the shot. Doors go up, drive in, get the shot. Doors go up on the backside, you drive out, and now you sit for observation to make sure that there are no adverse effects. The period is supposed to be 15 minutes, although my wife told me that when she last went, it was so crowded that it was about 7 or 8 minutes when a sheriff came up and said, "You good? See you later." And off you go. So again, the way the sites are working, you can sign up for your appointments, based on the specific site. Evelyn, please.
Councilperson Solomon, do you know anything that was brought up a couple of times, and there's been some mention about the testing on Marin? Is the city now charging for the testing on Marin?
So no, but there is a change in procedure, and I think there has been some confusion, and I think potentially even people at the Marin site were providing inaccurate information. So what has changed at the Marin testing site is that they are now going to ask you for insurance first, and they're going to bill your insurance company first to pay for it, as opposed to just giving the test and having the city bill it. But, and I think crucially, if you do not have insurance, you are still eligible to get the test, and they are still eligible to get reimbursed through FEMA. So what I was actually emailing about it today. What the new procedure is, you'll arrive at the test site, they'll ask you for your insurance information. And if you do have an insurance and you don't have it, they may ask you to go bring it. So if you're going to the Marin test site, please have your insurance information with you. If you do not have insurance, you basically just provide a social security number. And if you do not have a social security number, you can still get tested. You can just say, I'm not going to provide one, and then they'll still test you. So basically, it's just a new process because of the way they're doing reimbursements. I did have something to add too on the Jersey City vaccination front. I think some of this should be on our website, but our website is down. our city vendor who manages the website has all of their city websites down apparently across the country, and they do not have a exact timeline. But there is a new number to call to get to try to register for the vaccines that the city gets. So as Eric was saying, it's not the county, it's not what the private providers get. The city gets a certain allocation every week, and I put it in the chat. But that is a new number to call. And if you call that number, and then the company that we're working with will take your message and then hopefully get you scheduled either for an appointment if they have one available, or they'll put you on the list and call you to schedule you for an appointment when one becomes available. So I just wanted to make sure that folks had that. And I believe that will be on the city website as soon as it returns to life.
Thank you, James. Sorry, I was just writing that down. Okay, so if you would mind, Councilman Solomon, if we could have 10 or so minutes, I do want to talk about Mary Benson Park.
Take your time.
I would invite my good friend Michelle to join the conversation. Here's what I would like to say about that. So we, as of this morning, have released the survey. And the intent of the survey is, just to try to understand the way it's being used currently, for one, number of people that use it think is important. What about it do you think is important? Which elements that are currently in place are important? And then which sort of aspirational elements would you like to see, like in a perfect world, right? So we're dreaming here, and we're dreaming about, what might potentially down the road become a more significant passive park for use by the community. But at the moment, there is a plan in place to restore the area adjacent to Newark Avenue. And Michelle, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So a few months ago, I had actually sat with the city architect, Brian, and apparently we were, I don't want to say granted, but there was $200,000 floating around for Mary Benson Park. So I grabbed it. And when speaking to Brian, we talked about, first of all, renovating Newark Avenue right on the side of the firehouse, and to update it. We wanted to update the monument to Mary Benson. It's supposed to be a water fountain, but it's full of cement. Taking the fence down right on the sidewalk side to make it a more, flow better. You can go in, sit down, just upgrading that whole area, fixing the bathrooms, getting better doors, a little more security, and maybe plant better bushes, trees, and whatnot. So he actually thought at that time that the city was able to do it, maybe save a little money for other projects that we wanted at Mary Benson, but they did not. So at this point, he 2 weeks ago, he said he's going to he has to put it out to bid. He's putting it out to bid. And that's, that's par for the course. We know that. So hopefully somebody will bid, and that'll start in the spring. The second thing I talked to Brian about, because we have a little extra money, is actually twofold. One is the dog run, of course, because I know everybody wants to see a dog run. And I do too. But that's, anyway, so I sat with Brian, and actually we took a walk, and there's 2 locations possibly we can put them. One is right behind the basketball court, which is like a tarmac, if anybody's ever walked back there. Where would that be? You can see it on, you can see it.
I'm showing that on the.
So you see that nice piece of tar in the back? That is still city land. Anything to the left of that is turnpike. So we cannot go on that land.
So the grass is turnpike, but yes, the asphalt is up for grabs.
Yes. So it's not the biggest dog run, but again, speaking to Brian, showed him some dog run pictures that I like, things that go high, low, not that, they run around in circle and send themselves crazy. Maybe go up, go down, go under, things they can play with, interactive things for the dogs. So for me, that's actually the better place. Now, if you, I'm not good with east and west, but if you go to the right of the basketball court, yes, go down.
Yep, that's east.
So
Yep.
Okay, so you see this green area right where Eric is, all that, it looks like a kind of an arrow kind of thing. So we're going to take away those bleachers. So the bleachers are going to go, and that's going to start to be like a passive area. It's the start of a passive area. So there'll be trees. I'm hopefully want to get a rain garden, but we got to see. It's a lot of maintenance. So that area there will start to become the passive area. So, and then as you drive out, and that driveway, which is horrendous, that goes to Mercedes Street, that's going to be, I don't know if they're going to tar it or cobblestones. I don't know. I was thinking of something a little more authentic, but then again, it's whatever we can afford at this time. So what is that? Oh, all right. So
go ahead. I'm just setting something up.
No, I'm sorry. So, so that kind of will be all cleaned up, because that is kind of a marshy area. I mean, it gets soaked. So we're looking at filling it up, making a more greener pasture, benches, because I know the kids like to go in from Mary Benson, from number 5 school when they do go back. They'll have some place to go and hang out. Now, from what I hear, over on the other side where those little embankment walls are, apparently I had spoken to Maureen Crawley, you know, with the walkway, with the embankment, with all these, you know, I got my hands in all that. And hopefully they'll be returning them to the city, James. Yes. So I know you'll probably hear before I hear. So if they do come up, I think that would be such a beautiful area, again, for picnics or just, I don't know, maybe a handball, just to hit the ball against the wall or something. I don't know. But that's up for if anybody has any kind of ideas of what they want to do. Now, as for, and I did speak to a few councilmen, not you, James, sorry, but I did speak to a few councilmen, and the baseball field, the softball field at this time, there are no more leagues. The leagues do not come in from outside anymore. At this time, it's only high school that will be playing there, which it kind of alleviates all the insanity, you know, the parties on the weekends, the noise, you know, and all that. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be passive within the next few years. It's something that I guess you're going to have to work on. But but as of now, the hanging out, the parties is going to stop. It's only high school. They'll come, they'll play, and that sounds good. That's like the best it can do right now. And if you go over to the children's park, what I'd like to do, what I was trying to do anyway, was make it kind of a handicap, because I spoke to Evelyn, and she said that there's a few children in number 5 that are handicapped, and they have to walk around the whole damn baseball field to get into the, you know, to get where they want to go. And that's crazy. That's ridiculous. I mean, there was a door put at the far end. I'm pointing like you can see me.
Where? So the main entry's there.
All right, to the right, to the right, to the right. So they did put a gate there, so it is open so he can go in, or whoever can go in. But I'd really like to add some handicap playground equipment.
Yeah.
So again, I wanted to extend it, but I was told I can't go past that border. Can't go, because there's a lot of grants out there, and I've looked into a few that's a big thing. So I figured grant money, not even matching, just grant money, to put some play equipment for handicapped children, but it's so large, it would be like 2 or 3 pieces are too big for that, you know?
Got it.
So Yeah, I know, it's sad. If you just drag it down that little section right there, you see those used to all be old bleachers that they pulled out because they're on turnpike land. But there is a little section, like a little, go down. Nope, right there. Yes. So I was thinking maybe we can extend the children's park a little further there and maybe put something like one piece of handicap equipment, something.
Yep.
You know, because and then it may barrel over into the baseball field. You never know. But these are the ideas, and this is, and it's not only my idea, it's from me talking to people. I'm sorry,
Sure.
I don't share what I do because I just think too many hands in a pot spoil it. But I do talk to people. So those are the things that we've done so far. We've also got new trees. We've got new sidewalks. We're working on maybe getting a bit, we planted bulbs over the spring. So yeah, so that's about it. What do you think?
Well, I for one, I think it's great, and I just want to be clear, Michelle, that what we're trying to do is just support you and your efforts. You know, I think, you know, the ball, like we are all, as you are, I believe, you know, passionate about seeing this. You know, if it's a few years, 5, even more down the road, you know, eventually that space could really be just a, you know, a stellar experience for the community.
Yeah.
You know,
No, it would.
we had talked about.
I'm
Sorry,
sorry,
go ahead.
just two things that pop in my head. Not many people even know where Mary Benson Park is. They've never seen it. Honestly, if you just walked over to, I don't know, go to Hamilton Park and say, hey, you know what Mary Benson Park is? They'll look at you like you're nuts. They're like,
no, you're right.
A lot of people don't even know.
And that was really part of the intent of the survey that we've got out. So
we actually,
anyone that has kids in the area knows where Mary Benson Park is.
Because they go to number 5, right? Because they go to the school.
Just because if you have kids in the area, you're always looking for parks, so you know where all the parks are.
Okay, that's fine.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nisha, you wanted to ask a question or make a comment?
I did, thank you. Can you scroll down a little bit to the corner of 3rd and Marcellus, please? So, thank you. When I walk in that area, I always think to myself, it's a funny intersection, and I wonder if the little area that's a lighter colored gray triangle in front of the school, is there a way to take that and annex that into the park? I mean, I know that's a more complicated question, but I always think to myself, it's sort of wasted space if they could just have the intersection be straight as opposed to angled like that. And that could be a place you could maybe throw some additional playground equipment for kids who have disabilities.
It did actually, someone did bring that up. Oh my God, maybe about a year ago. And it was something about the flow of I don't remember the answer. I'm sorry.
I'm sure it's about the buses and the drop off. I mean, I don't disagree that
yeah.
On non-school days, it seems like a lot of space, but in the morning and afternoon drop-offs, you've got, you know, multiple buses, you know, queued up here.
That makes sense. Since I haven't seen any buses there in the last 9 months, I'm like, oh, it's nice. Look at all that space.
School used to be a thing.
Thank you.
All right, so I just wanted to go back to this. I just quickly took a snip and was just sketching over it. So what Michelle was talking about was this arrow-shaped section as being a potential for, you know, a future passive park, which is actually a pretty sizable little space. That's sort of thrilling. And this is the section here that she was talking about potentially being dog run, and then what's currently, or at least what has previously been presented, was essentially you know, upgrading this area, including, I believe there were even benches shown all the way along kind of the backside of the firehouse. That would be an improvement to that park.
Yes, and hopefully along when you're coming out of that road, which fence where the fire, but they park on the right one side, and then it's park on over here down at the bottom. We're trying to line that with trees, just to, you know, make it look more parky because it's ugly. Think about it.
The dirt approach.
Yeah, that whole, it's ugly. And so,
Agreed.
you know, maybe and it's the year of the trees, thank God. So adding trees right there, all that, getting some new trees in there just to bring a little more life to it.
So I have a question for you, Michelle. So the Friends of Mary Benson Park is an entity that I admittedly don't know enough about, but I know from speaking with you, you know, on multiple occasions that you know, you're having these discussions, and what's coming out of them is generally extraordinarily positive, and I for one appreciate that.
I do apologize again for not involving too many people, but sometimes it's just, I mean, like I said, I do listen and I try to take a good census of what people want, but then
no, I get it. I guess
doing Village Park was beautiful. It was probably I mean, it took 10 years, but it was one of the best experiences. I can tell you, it was beautiful. It really was. And then as going forward, being on the Park Coalition and, you know, helping others, and we all group together to build other smaller parks or even enhanced parks, it's a great experience. But we all realize, I mean, as much as you want your community input, and for me, it's listening and kind of figuring out what you guys want. There's also that point when you have 100 people saying, and it makes you insane after a while. It really does. So after talking to people, I realized the biggest thing is a dog run, right? Some passive area and a better enhancement of the park.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've already gotten, you know, a number of responses to the survey that only came out this morning. I think we've got 25 people who filled it out. So Michelle, we're gonna get with you to talk about, you know, the results of that, just in case there's anything there that might be news to you. I'm guessing probably not. You tend to have your finger on the pulse. But one of the things that we had talked about as a board, just to throw it out there so you can hear it, is, you know, so what I'm thinking is, as you talked about this triangular section is, let's say fast forward, that becomes, you know, kind of passive park-ish, you know, paths, beautiful, you know, that we might potentially want to consider something like hosting a farmer's market, you know, as they do at Van Voorst or Hamilton Park. Just bring awareness to this section of the village. And obviously it's not big enough to currently think about those kinds of things, but these are the sort of pipe dreams that we've been discussing that, you know, could be cool.
If you get I won't run. I mean, yes, it's a great idea.
I think as the VNA would figure out, you know, the volunteering and all that. Oh, I know.
It's a lot of work. I know they do. I know Mark from Van Voorst, he does his all year round now. The profits per month, he said, you know, with all the stuff is maybe about $1,800.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean.
No, I think the goal here would be more of a community, you know, getting together, involvement, awareness.
Well, I actually wanted to do movies in the park, but at that point they wouldn't let us go in the baseball field, because that's the best place to have it. You know, put it right there, and everybody. It's enough of space. Maybe this year they'll let us. I don't know, but I think that would be.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
With the adult leagues no longer there, and it's just being used for high school, what high schools are going to be playing there? Is it going to be like Ferris or Dickinson, or who's going to be playing?
The Catholic high school, St. Dom's. Oh my God, is there any more Catholic high schools left? Just that's what they told me. They told me the high schools will be playing there, and I've actually seen them there. You know, over was it last year or the year before? I know they stopped it at one point. Where are you, Lewis? Lewis, I have a question for you. I have a question for you. I mean, everybody talks about how they want to knock down the fences and build, you know, that big passive area. Do you feel that it's safe? You and I have been in that mud for years. Do you feel it's safe to bring that down and make it wide open passive? That's my question. Because I feel like it's not.
You mean by the ball field?
Yes, knocking the
But
ball
you mean
field fencing down and open it up to passive area. Do you feel it's safe?
safe in a way like
Safe
I'm
in
not
a
sure I
way
understand the
from,
question.
like, okay, so when I was a kid, we used to
Stuff
go
coming
back
off
there.
the turnpike, or
Right.
is it, you know, is it,
Coming
okay,
down
I
from
get
the
it.
turnpike, the vagrants, the homeless, the alcoholics, the junkies. I mean, they still pass through there. I see them. You have to see them. You know, for me,
Yeah,
that scares me. Scares me.
well, I think, you know, if obviously your concern about anything falling from the turnpike is a real concern, right? Because along Mercedes Street there, they put up that barrier on the turnpike so stuff doesn't come over the turnpike and fall on parked cars parked on Mercedes Street below, right? That's what I would imagine. That's the reason they did that. You know, I would imagine if you could get the Turnpike Authority to do the same thing there, yeah, I mean, I think it could be safe. I mean, my question, the reason I asked about the ball field was that is it necessary to have a ball field? And I'm not trying to say get rid of ball field, so please no one misinterpret what I'm saying. Is you have, you know, the ball fields at Enos Jones, you have Roberto Clemente. Does that have the capacity to handle baseball games that are needed to be played, and now turn Mary Benson into a park like Hamilton Park? You know, that's a really nice park down there, you know.
And Louis, it's so sad because you could see the kids all squished into the playground, and meanwhile the ball field is free, but they're not allowed to play in it. It's just so sad.
I thought they were. I thought that was opened to the kids at number 5. I thought they were allowed to go in there
at lunchtime. But what about, like, you know, after school on the weekends?
I never see. Well, that's not true. I do see kids there because I'm in and out of the park all the time. But I don't know. For me, once that fence goes down, every vagrant that look, when I go up to the cemetery and we walk down, you have to see what's back there. Has anybody actually walked back there? So people actually in camp. Yeah, people are camping out there. If they got kicked out of their house, they're camping back there. I mean, and then they walk right through. But hopefully they'll knock it down, but I don't know.
I think you shouldn't let a problem like that stop you from developing a park. You know, that's a problem that I believe can be rectified and corrected in some way, you know? So I don't know. My thoughts are, expand the park, take down the fence, you know?
But do so in a coordinated effort with the construction so that it's clear that this is becoming something else.
Correct. Yeah. There's got to be a way to coordinate it, but that is a lot of space. And yes, you know, it's pretty much unused aside from baseball games. And that's a lot of space in an area that we don't, you know, we're in a city. Space is at a premium, you know, so will the other baseball fields accommodate, you know, and could this be turned into something more? Just a question. It's not.
No. I was told, I know someone had asked one of the council people about that, and I think the answer was, if you find a place to put them, those leagues or whatever, not the leagues, well, if you find a place to put those games, those people who play there, the high schools, it would be put on the table. So I didn't think of the Oaks. I thought about, what's the one under the pike? Gateway? Now, Gateway has
Enos Jones Park.
No,
Gateway.
I'm sorry.
Gateway. Gateway has 2 baseball fields, soft, whatever the hell they're called. One is beautiful. I mean, it's gated. And the other one is just right out there where the kids and everybody can go play a game. So my goal was to get the second one built beautifully. You know, get the grant money, help. Her name is Ashita. Help her build this other field up and then move the games over and then boom, do what the heck you want with the field. That I couldn't get any support. You know, I couldn't get any support to do that. They said, oh no, you got to leave it. And sorry, James, it's the city that I fight with all the time. And everything is baby steps. But that was my goal. Take those games or whatever the hell they're called, move them over to Gateway in a better field, and boom, you got your Mary Benson. You can do whatever you want with it. But it came up, oh, it's too, the area is not the best. And, you know, there were shootings at the time. Well, shootings can happen anywhere. They've happened at Mary Benson. You just don't hear about them, you know? So that was my fight with the city, James. If I can get that field, and I tried to get that field renovated and grants and to build that up, gate it so these teams can go play there. It was a little ray of hope. What can I say?
Well, we share that sentiment, Michelle, and well, we want to work with you. We don't want to step on toes or, you know, drive the
and that's the hardest thing,
subject matter, but
toes.
yeah. Well,
you know, you got to kiss somebody's ass here to get an inch over there.
Yep.
Excuse my language.
No, it's fine. I'm willing to pucker up. That was the intent of this survey, really. So we're gonna keep that survey out there for anybody that haven't taken it, myself included, because we just released it this morning. We want to understand how you use the park and what you'd like to see in the park. So more to come on this subject. This is absolutely something that would be a huge benefit to the community, and there are some hurdles, like with every bit of construction that requires a significant amount of land in a dense city environment. But more to come on this.
And one more thing, the turnpike won't budge.
Yeah, no, I think we have to draw a line that stays away from them and deals with.
Oh my God, they won't budge. And I've had Mr. You know, I don't know if you know John Lynch. He was like the liaison, and he's a fighter. God bless him. He tried, but they were like, nope. But you can park under Ferris, under that turnpike part, because we were looking to maybe put parking there. It just, you know, there's a tarmac behind the turnpike, a good place for parking, gated up. I don't know. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. I'm rolling on now.
No, you're good. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, James, for your patience. I'm actually glad you're here.
James.
No. I'm glad you're here to hear
this. Got a lesson today. I'm sorry. You got a lesson.
No, right? It's all good. So that then leads us into the last section of our meeting tonight. We'll post this deck. Testing sites are on here. We talked about Mary Benson Park. And now I'd like to turn it over to Councilman Solomon. And thank you for joining us tonight, James.
Hey, thank you for having me. And thank you, Michelle, for the presentation. You know, too, that sometimes I fight with the city as well. So we're in the same company sometimes. But it is great to see everybody. You know, as Eric said at the start, you know, we're in this long COVID winter, but there are kind of, you know, green shoots, and I hope everyone is holding up okay. I'll share with you something that I saw the other day. Someone was saying, you know, in 5-6 weeks, it's going to be warm enough for us to see each other outside. And then in a few months after that, it's going to be warm. And then in a few months after that, hopefully everybody who wants a vaccine will have one, and we'll be hopefully in a much better place. So I do want to offer a ray of hope for everybody in this difficult time. So for what I'm doing today is just general updates. So what I'll do is update you guys on some of the stuff we talked about the last time I was with you all. Talk about a couple of sort of high level things that's going on at the city, and then really do open Q&A. And I'm really, you know, you guys can ask me about anything. So it can be about, you know, neighborhood stuff, speed bumps, and then we can go all the way to very big high level things that are happening in Jersey City. So some of the stuff that we talked about the last meeting that I want to update everybody on. Everyone's favorite topic first, parking and our new parking zones. So you hopefully have seen around the neighborhood the new residential parking signs going up. They have extended the hours Monday through Friday. We used to be 8 to 5. Now it'll be 7 to 9 with the same 2-hour window. If you're a resident, no difference to you. You have your permit and you can park. Only difference, slight difference is the map has slightly changed on where the zones are. If you have an old permit, you don't need to get a new one, rush and get a new one. You simply need to get a new one when it expires. So you don't have to go up to the parking authority tomorrow and get a new one. And our hope is that this helps free up some parking when folks from out of town might be coming in on a Friday, or other people, commuters, would come in and take spots, and this will hopefully create and free up more neighborhood spots for the residents here. Connected to that, we were asked about visitors passes. Those passes are available at the parking authority, but we have purchased the system to basically allow you to buy them on your phone through the Park Mobile app. So you don't have to go up to the parking authority in Central Avenue. And I'm told they're a couple months away from getting that ready for everybody. So when it's ready, we'll send out an alert, and we'll make sure we put it in my newsletter. I'm sure Joe and the VNA will put it in their newsletter. So we're only a couple months away from not having to go up to the Central Avenue for visitors pass. Road updates. There were a bunch of road questions at the last meeting. So there's a group of neighbors here at First and Monmouth that we've been working with for the last 6 to 9 months. Hopefully you guys have seen the new changes over there at First and Monmouth. So you've got a new sort of parking lane and then a new bump out. And that came about because traffic engineering didn't think that the intersection was appropriate for a stop sign. And so we wanted to come up with a different solution that would slow cars. And what we agreed to was sort of, in essence, a 6-month implementation. So it was put in, I believe, in December. Interested in what you guys think. Has this worked? Has it actually slowed cars, made it safer? And after we give it about 6 months, we're going to come back. We'll review it. The traffic has collected, or we'll be collecting some data on it. I want your feedback on it. And then if it works, great. And then if it doesn't work, we'll go to other solutions, potentially such as stop signs and pretty much anything else that could be in the mix to make that intersection safe. A few other folks had asked about speed bumps. There is an application for First Street between Colgate and Brunswick that is approved. All we're waiting on is the city to go out to bid for a speed bump contract. So hopefully that'll go out in the next couple of months, and should be, construction would happen in the spring or the early summer at the latest. A lot of folks asked about the intersection at 3rd and Newark. Traffic engineering will be painting a don't block the box sort of striping on that, and also put up some signs as well. And that'll happen in the early spring when we can get back to road striping. We asked about a stop sign at 6th and Division at the last meeting, and that stop sign now exists. We do want to make further changes because we know Division Street isn't the safest, and that corridor in Newark, we get a ton of complaints because of folks speeding down the Palisades. And so the plan is to put in place in the next year safety measures that would make Newark Avenue safer. And when I have a design from traffic, I will send it to you. Last but not least for the neighborhood is Columbus Drive. So my hope would be in the next month that traffic will be able to present to you guys a redesign of all of Columbus Drive. So from basically Brunswick all the way down to the waterfront. And the real focus of the design is safety. We've had some of our worst crashes and injuries and deaths on Columbus. So we really want to prioritize it for safety. They presented the design in the fall of 2019. They got community feedback. They've gone through a bunch of traffic study, and then COVID hit, so it got delayed. But they're working through those designs, and my hope would be in the next month they'll be able to have another open public community meeting to present them. And obviously for the VNA, who has a couple blocks of Columbus, we want your guys' feedback and input on that. And then this is not in the village specifically, but tomorrow night at 6 p.m. the safety redesign of Marin Boulevard there'll be a public discussion of that. And that there's a link I'll put in the chat when I'm done, but that would be, people are welcome to attend and provide their feedback on that.
Thank you. Yeah, we were hoping you were going to mention that one.
Yeah, happy to do it, and happy to say a little bit more too in Q&A and things. Now I just want to provide a couple development updates. Start with outside the village, just be on people's radars. The area north of the Holland Tunnel between 14th and 18th Streets, city planning has started a series of community meetings. They had the first one 2 weeks ago, and I'll have 2 more in the next coming month, just to get people's feedback for what we'd like to see in that neighborhood. That neighborhood has sort of been developed piecemeal, a project here and a project there. And what planning is doing is taking a step back to try to create a more holistic neighborhood plan and think about the core infrastructure needs we need, potentially schools, potentially we need light rail station up there. as well as the importance of building affordable housing in that area, because we just simply do not have enough of it and it hasn't been prioritized in the near future. Very briefly, embankment. The embankment conversations proceed. There has been some difficulty with one of the negotiating partners, Conrail, but I know that the Embankment Coalition is still working very, very hard with the city to try to advance that project forward. And as soon as, there's more formal updates, I will let you know. I know at times the mayor has announced in the last year or two that we have had a settlement, but we're not fully there at a settlement yet. We're close, but those conversations are moving forward, and I'll let the Embankment Coalition sort of really speak to the details of where they're at with that. And then last but not least, I did want to bring up a potential project in your neighborhood, which I haven't really talked. I've talked very briefly about it, I think, with the board, but I have not spoken a ton about it. But I do want to just bring it up for folks' awareness and see where we're at with it. So there are empty lots right at the corner of First and Coles, right on First Street, on the southern side of that. And it used to be the art supply store, and then there's the surface parking lot next to it. I had not known this, but I've done more research. So those lots had been owned and acquired by the Jersey City's redevelopment agency, the JCRA, in the 1980s. And the Jersey City Redevelopment Agency signed an agreement with developer Peter Mako in the 80s to build residential housing there. That housing, according to the agreement, which I have now read, was supposed to be completed in 1986. I would have been 2 at the time. As you can imagine, that has not been completed since then. The redevelopment plan that it was in was, I believe, 40-year plan. It has now expired. It expired in 2020. So the JCRA has come to the city council and asked us to renew the plan. Yep, that's the lot. You guys can see it up there. So to date, and this is where I want to have conversations with you guys, and part of why I'm bringing it up today is I really want your guys' input on this. To date, I've sort of said, if the developer, this was city-owned land, which wasn't not privately owned land, this was city-owned land, and the developer had 30 years to build on it and chose not to. I'm not sure why we're sort of bending over backwards to let them build sort of what they want on it. And so I've sort of asked it to pause it, and that's where it stands right now. If people are really interested in seeing the sort of residential development on it, and I know they presented to you, we can happy to have that conversation and see if it should move forward at the city council. Another option would be to explore our legal avenues to see if there are ways in which the city can, I think maybe potentially better utilize that land for more public uses and purposes, given that the redevelopment plan is expired. It again expired in 2020. I do have to be honest that it has to be guided by, in part, legal conversation. No one really knows what an expired redevelopment plan means. I'd say common sense means it's expired. You can't build on it, but it ends up getting into a very kind of complex legal system. So I did want to give everyone that update on that project, and it was, again, they're trying to explore they tried to move it forward at the council. I asked them to pause because of the expiration, and then we'll see where it goes going forward. Last but not least on my agenda update, and then happy to answer questions about everything, is 2 policy updates, marijuana and the city budget. So I just want to give everyone folks an update on marijuana. As you sure know, in November, the state overwhelmingly voted to legalize recreational marijuana. And Trenton has now kind of gotten stalled in passing the legislation to make it a reality. But we do expect, whether it's a couple of weeks or a couple of months, that Trenton will eventually get their act together and pass it. And then what that means at the local level is for us to decide, in essence, what our zoning is going to be for it. And the current proposal that the mayor has put out is to allow what are called dispensaries anywhere where retail is allowed. So allow anybody to open up a dispensary where they want retail. I am going to, in the next month, engage on a series of community meetings to try to get your input on what you think is the right step. I want to be sort of clear at the start and say that I support legalization, and I think it's important that people have safe access points to marijuana. However, it doesn't mean it's the right thing in every neighborhood and in every space to have dispensaries and other things. So we're going to have an open conversation in the near future and get everyone's feedback on where they want to see it in their neighborhoods or not, and then proceed on that front.
And there are state guidelines that are primarily going to drive that. Is that correct?
So the zoning is going to be local. So the state guidelines set things like, the whole regulatory framework, what products can be sold, some things around use, taxation, but there's going to be a lot of local discretion around zoning, particularly. So zoning around dispensaries, zoning around, potentially, this wouldn't be for the village, but factories and actual kind of creation of marijuana. So
yeah, I know Hoboken's building 2 dispensaries right now, Eric, and I would hate for us to kind of wait too long on deciding what to do with it, and all of our people in Jersey City go to Hoboken.
No, I don't disagree. But the reason I made that comment is there is a map out there that is public information that shows where, based on adjacencies to schools and places of worship and things like that.
There's like
yeah. And the odd thing about it is if you look at it, there's literally only one section of downtown Jersey City where that is at least currently possible. And that's like by the Starbucks on Grove Street.
Yeah. So as I understand it, Eric, that map was in essence valid when we had the previous regime of medical marijuana.
Got it.
Now the city has the power. We could codify that map if that's what the city wanted, but the city now can set its zoning rules. And I just think it's important that we have kind of a public conversation about what we want.
Well, quick question on that though. And this is Mark. How you doing, guys? I get those notifications as everyone does, and I saw somewhere down south, someone advanced the home grow, number of plants. So if Trenton gets their act together and they include that, how does that change the optics on zoning if people can just plant 4 plants in their backyard anyway?
Yeah, I think it would. I don't have an answer for you because, Mark, I think it would be up to us on that conversation. If does homegrown change what we want or not? Right now, just so everyone knows, homegrown is not allowed under the current scheme, but a bill was introduced to allow it, and I don't know what its chances of success are in Trenton.
I actually work for a holdings company that has its, believe it or not, its roots in cannabis. Our big thing is non-alc beer, but the non-alc beer actually started being, de-alced on the West Coast so they could infuse it with cannabis. And I know the dispensary laws in like Las Vegas, you can actually get down to it. And again, this is Nevada, so it's different. But I would suspect that the city could decide how they want to roll it out, as well as dictate some policy on how to make it more, acceptable or less intimidating, right? I know there's a section, the Paradise section of Las Vegas, which is a little bit more of a, it was the very first section that started with cannabis in Las Vegas. And you have to have these man traps. The building's got to have no windows. And, it's sort of intimidating looking when you see it. But, as things progress, now it's a totally different thing. It's like going to a Starbucks, essentially, So I think it's all about how you make it, publicly, you make the public appearance of it, I should say, right? There's a way to do this where it wouldn't be, this thing that's, oh my God, there's a dispensary on Newark Avenue, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to that point, we should learn from all the cities that have done this, right? And at least in the US, right? Seattle, Denver, Las Vegas, LA, San Francisco, for a varying number of years, they've done this. And so part of what we hope to do when we do the community meetings in March is to bring in some experts who can advise us and say, look, this is what's worked well in these cities. This is, kind of advanced issues of equity and quality of life, and, potentially provide some options for people to think about.
And also, a lot of these dispensaries are owned, or some of the equity in the dispensary is owned by these large MSOs, multi-state operators like Harvest, Verano. I mean, larger companies, Planet 13, there's a holding company above that. So I think to give, there's a way to negotiate, I guess, to make it acceptable with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And excited to kind of have the conversation with folks and get people's input on what they want to see and what our options are. I just want to make it, I just don't want it to kind of sort of happen by default, and all of a sudden we haven't had a chance to really have a community conversation around it.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I, sorry, James, I want to just go back really quickly to the to the First Street property. Oh, sorry, Dominica. Let me just ask this question real quick, if you don't mind, and then it's all you. She's raised her hand very politely, and I just like jumped in. Sorry about that. So this proposal that you and I have discussed previously, which we had last seen from Mako, which was for those lots, are we? I know last time you and I spoke about this, James, we were talking about hoping that it would default to the R5, which is the zoning that it would be in. And you had mentioned that, as you said tonight, nobody really knows what happens. And, of course, Peter Mako is likely to put up a very litigious fight to keep that land. I just want to ask sort of outright, do we know for certain that this proposal that we had previously seen, which is loading here, is dead? Yes? Or it's still being litigated?
Here's my understanding of it. And so, Peter Mako could, and our company could try to propose a site plan and go before the planning board. At that point, the planning board would have to follow the legal guidance of, well, can you approve a plan in an expired redevelopment plan? And if they said no, which I think it would be at least a prudent decision, then Peter Mako could sue, and it could go into court and determine what the appropriate approach would be. The other option, or there's sort of two other options. The second option would be for the city council to extend the redevelopment plan expiration date. So in essence, that would allow that project to move forward if that's what people want. There's no sort of, there's certainly an option we can pursue, again, if there's support for that proposal. And then the third option would be some sort of agreement where, he would agree to modify his proposal based on community concerns and desires, and then, the city could move forward potentially. And then I should have the fourth one, which is for the city to really pursue it in court and try to pursue other options to build something totally different there. In essence, say the redevelopment plan's expired. We can
take it back.
We should put in new zoning for, can imagine a whole variety of other things.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Dominica, please go ahead.
Actually, a question on that piece of property. Living on that block, I would love to see that. I don't mind it being redeveloped into housing of some sort, either apartments, and I don't know if that plan was condos or apartments. But really, I think somebody else should have it. I mean, I hate to start another legal battle.
No, you're right, 100%.
But he, 100%. Of all people, should not.
Already destroyed that block.
Yeah, he already has, right?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Anybody.
At the same time, I don't want to cost the city tons of more money, because even when he starts building, we're going to have to fight that too, because he'll do other things that he's supposed to. Yeah.
Anybody could get it but him.
Right.
And again, this is from the lawyers will advise us on the legal side, which I can't speak to at the moment, but just from a policy, or policy is the wrong word, like a common sense basis, if the city gave you the land and you were supposed to build it in 1986, we're 35 years from when, or give or take, from when it was supposed to be constructed. That's a very, very long time to sit on a piece of land.
So he got that land at no charge?
I think it was there wasn't no charge. I didn't get to pay for it, but it was
probably like Governor's Island. It was $1.
Yeah, I can go back and find it, but I think it was in the, thousands to $10,000 of dollars in the 80s.
Yeah, I think you lose your place if 2 city revals go and you still haven't acted.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
yeah. I know that in my block, it was supposed to end with my house, but he added one more or a couple more units on every single corner of these blocks, which has caused all kinds of issues. So he definitely has had his. I was going to ask, there's a couple new things on businesses on Newark, and I assumed that they were going to be dispensaries because they were so grand, and I couldn't imagine we had that large of a hookah industry.
Oh yeah, you're talking about the amazing influx of smoke shops on Newark Ave. Yeah, 100%. There's some huge ones.
Wow, it's really changed the feeling and vibe, I guess, of Newark Ave.
You didn't know it's not Restaurant Row anymore. It's Hookah Row.
What part of Newark Ave?
Oh, the plaza. There are 3 sizable new smoke shops that have opened up.
What?
Yeah, they're large, right? So, and you were saying that area dispensaries would not be allowed because of it's too close to school zoning or whatever?
No. So
those are just smoke shops that we're going to have forever.
So as of today, those are smoke shops because this state of New Jersey has not passed their marijuana legalization bill. Because it's New Jersey and we can't do anything simply. We voted for it in November, but we didn't actually create the system. So now that the legislature has to create the system for us, because they haven't done it, we don't know what it's going to be. But looking at what the bills that have advanced look like, we can reasonably guess what the system is going to be. And what they have said is, in essence, they're going to let municipalities determine their own zoning around dispensaries. So it will be up to Jersey City to set the rules. The mayor has said that his proposal is going to be to allow dispensaries anywhere where retail establishments are allowed. So in essence, that would include all of Newark Avenue. So you would be allowed to open dispensaries there. My kind of approach at this point is to try to solicit feedback from folks and say, is that what you want? Another approach would be what the general rule around liquor licenses is, where you can only have one within 750 feet of another, or you have to be further than 750 feet. So in essence, it spaces them out. That's another option. The third option could be to say, we want them in neighborhood commercial, but we don't want them in these redevelopment areas. So you could have a variety of different approaches. You could also try to set caps on the number across the city. So I believe Hoboken is considering 4 dispensaries in Hoboken. So you could argue that you'd want a cap in Jersey City. Again, I say this to be, I've thought about it, but I haven't done deep research on it yet. And I do want to have a conversation with folks to see what they think is the right approach.
Yeah, they're building out at least 2 that they're almost finished with right on the waterfront in downtown Hoboken right now. Yep. That are supposedly going to be medical, but we all know that that's going to switch very quickly to public consumption.
Yeah, it absolutely will.
Yep.
Right now being built, like could open any day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're a little behind.
Who issues the license though? The city? The state has to issue the license.
So the state has
determines how many licenses.
So the state has a regulatory commission that will issue dispensary licenses, as well as grow and the other. I forget the exact categories, but the other categories. Mm-hmm. But the city can set for dispensaries, but the city can set its own limits through basically with our laws, or in technical terms, enabling ordinance. So again, like I said, Hoboken is setting, I believe, is moving forward with a process of setting a limit of 4. We could do the same in Jersey City, or we could vary it again based on different aspects of our city zoning code.
Also, too, keep in mind there's multiple licenses. You brought something up I didn't mean to think of. Then I'm just talking for out west, right? There's a dispensary license. There's a manufacturing license that you would make, products like edibles, and then there's a cultivation license. In addition, there's a distribution license because you have to be licensed to, if there's somebody that has a grow, I don't know, somewhere in the city and they're selling their product to a dispensary, you have to have a license to distribute and to take that, that product to the dispensary, to wherever you're selling it to. So there's, retail, there's manufacturing, there's cultivation. So I would imagine, you would want to think about that too. Don't just think about the retail only, right? Because here's another thing. From an economic standpoint, the manufacturing piece could also drive business in the city, right? That could bring jobs to the city, not just the retail.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you have to think about it all at a city level. I think in downtown, I think the retail will be more of the focus for downtown, just given, the sort of buildings here. But, I'm open both to downtown and to the citywide to have the full conversation there.
Well, if they do this, if the state rolls out, class 1, class 2, class 3, right, and that makes up, the 3 classes that were mentioned, if they don't put a framework around, vertical integration, I think it's up to us to, almost insist there's no vertical integration. You can't grow and distribute and, sell it on Newark Ave. That's just too much for one business. I think we're a little tired of that.
Yes, I think.
Well,
yes. I think we can set up the rules around how the different licenses would interact with each other, at least locally,
right,
in Jersey City. And I see Evelyn has her hand.
Yeah, I was just going to say, thank you, James.
Thank you, Councilperson.
Yeah.
Can you speak to the MUA solid waste charge?
Yes. So I think is bad public policy. So just be very honest with you. So we, as a city, we have a trash pickup contract, right? The guys who come and pick up your trash and recycling. It's a private company called Regional. And we renewed their contract this prior summer, and it was an increase of roughly $5 million a year. So their contract is now a $16 million a year contract to pick up the trash and recycling. They were our only bidder. We didn't have any choices. And I have found their service to be consistently poor, from just frequently missing trash pickup to just having lots of trash everywhere and on the street after they're done. That has been paid, certainly since I've been on the city council, just through your general property tax bill in the general city budget, the city budget that's passed every year that your property taxes go and fund. This fall, the Municipal Utilities Authority, which is the sort of weird quasi-governmental agency that runs our sewer system, they decided to place a surcharge on every water bill in the city, so paid for by property owners, that is now going to pay that $16 million contract. So in essence, you will now see a little extra charge on your water bill moving forward that's going to go directly to paying that contract. So in essence, they've taken it out of the city budget and put it in the MUA budget, and it will now be funded by your water bill, not funded by your property taxes. Now, we haven't seen the 2021 budget, but I don't think I'm mistaken here when I say that you're not going to get a corresponding $16 million tax cut in your city budget, right? Your city budget is probably going to have a flat fee, so your taxes aren't going to go up or down in the city budget. And unfortunately, given the school funding crisis, your school taxes are going to go up. We just don't know how much. And so I think this is a really poor decision. I think it's both just it lacks transparency. You're hiding the fee in the water bill, and you didn't really tell anybody you're doing this. I think it's not equitable because a family of four uses the same amount of water across the whole city. So everyone in essence is now going to pay similar, and it's not going to have basically forms of progressive taxation. And then I think it's just going to, instead of forcing the city to say, look, we may have to make tougher choices in our budget, maybe make cuts, in essence, it's going to kind of allow the city to spend more money in its budget. So in essence, it is really a backdoor $16 million tax increase that's going to go through your water bill. So I did a video on it last week. It sort of came out, it was sort of reported right around the new year, but it was sort of in the works for a while. But again, because there was no transparency, people didn't know about it, and yet we had to do a lot of digging to find out that it happened.
Thank you. And just one other question in regard to the payroll tax for schools. Do we know what's going on with that? And will you be auditing or supporting an audit?
Yeah, so the payroll tax, so far each year has collected roughly $50 to $60 million that goes directly to the schools. What we found out through Councilman Lavaro asking some questions was that one of the major construction companies that has been in our neighborhood, Katera, had not been paying the tax for the last 2 years. And they were kind of moving forward with a project, and they came up through that. We have now called to basically do an audit, in essence, hire auditors at the city level to go through, every corporation doing work in Jersey City and make sure that they've paid their payroll tax. I support that. It was Councilman Lavaro who was pushing it. And I believe that pretty much everyone has said they support it, which is good. Now the question is, can we actually execute and bring in the auditors to do the work in the short term? So I'm fully supportive of that, and I think it is a good thing for the city.
We have two more hands that have been raised, Dominica and Mr. Farrell. I knew you wouldn't be able to stay quiet tonight. I'm really pleased. Dominica, please.
Real quick, James, I've been meaning to actually email you about this. Sure. There's so much housing going up around PS5. Most of it's 2 to 3 bedrooms. Is there a plan in place for overcrowding of PS5? I mean, there must be 15 buildings within a 5-block radius, I think.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've been trying to kind of look at school infrastructure. It's a huge priority of mine. And I know a lot of the folks on this call have kids in the public schools, and mine will be there starting in September. So the main project that we advanced to sort of address this from a downtown perspective was a new project at what's called Laurel and Saddlewood Court, which are the tiny little cul-de-sacs and homes over on Grove Street. So obviously it's further away from the village, but that will eventually deliver a full new elementary school downtown, pre-K 3 through 5, seating between 300 to 400 kids. And looking at our projections, that's not going to be enough once all the towers go up in downtown, but it's a huge step in the right direction. We do have a new pre-K that's going to open by PS16 in September over at Warren Street. And I'm looking at this sort of comprehensively through all of downtown. So basically, you know, it will hopefully, if you add more school capacity in downtown, you'll avoid creating huge overcrowding situations at any one school because you'll be able to basically distribute the children so that you don't have overcrowding in any one school. So I don't have a direct PS5 plan for you, but I think the new school over on Grove Street is going to be a huge win for everybody.
Wait, but the school on Grove Street doesn't affect anyone in the village, or that goes to zone for PS5.
So,
right.
What would happen would be we'd work with the school district each year. So let's say the new buildings at 5 lead to overcrowding, and there's not enough room for pre-K 3. Right? What has happened in the past, and that's happened at 37 school and happened at 16 school, they've bused the kids to other schools in further parts of the city, PS 22 in Lafayette, and then Danforth School over in Greenville. My goal by getting this new school infrastructure would be for us to say, no, let's not do that. Let's potentially shift the boundaries a little bit. 2 blocks here, 2 blocks there. Then some kids will now go, instead of 16 school, now they're going to be zoned for this new school at Grove Street. Or instead of 37 school, now they're zoned for 5 or 16. But the hope is basically to be able to use the boundaries locally to make sure that there's enough capacity so that there is no overcrowding in any one school in downtown. Now that we're going to require the partnership with the Board of Ed. So Board of Ed has to be willing each year to kind of look at the data and adjust. But that is sort of the way that's our sort of main kind of plan to address it right now.
So to see where the density lies and adjust it potentially on an annual basis.
Yeah, so you don't have massive overcrowding. And again, we're not trying not to do huge redrawings of boundaries, but limited so that we don't have the situation we have now at 37 and 16 schools where, at 16, you had hundreds of kids being bused, pre-COVID.
Yeah, no, my kids were bused to 22 before they could get into 5. So I get it.
Mm-hmm. I guess my only concern about that is that's fine for pre-K, but then first, second, it's a lot of building. You're hoping people move out, I guess, because there's a lot of apartments and condos. There's a lot of condos going up.
I very much want people to stay. And I can show you guys the data because I've looked at this. Unfortunately, you do see just a decline from pre-K 3 is the highest. COVID, I think, has changed that, but I think once we're through COVID, it will return to that pattern. And so by 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, you do see lower class sizes at all of the downtown elementary schools right now. I'd love for people to stay. That would be amazing. That's what I really want for folks to really, which a lot of folks on this call do, raise their kids here. So. I know questions from Peter and Nisha.
Yep. Mr. Farrell.
Yep. Hey, James. Thanks for coming out tonight. A couple of things. One, I wanted to thank you for getting that block the box on 3rd Street since we raised that on the last call, so I appreciate that. I want to make my request that I always make to you when you show up to these meetings is that still looking for a 2nd Street and 3rd Street between Brunswick and Marcelli's to be paved. Hasn't happened since 2010. It didn't happen this year either. 2nd Street, down off of you know, from Brunswick going towards Marcelli's has like some landmines in the road, and 3rd Street hasn't been paved. So that is my annual request for that. Third thing is there an opportunity, when is the opportunity going to be able to comment on the location of the marijuana dispensaries? It's probably a difference of opinion in the community as to where people may want those. You're going to have a formal like comment period. So if you could just respond to that. And then the last question I had was on the development of the 14th through 18th Street, you know, thing, is there, you know, is the city going to require them to put a school in over there? You know, the piece of property that Mako has on 1st Street on that corner, could there be an annex put up for PS5 at that location instead of residential? I'm just wondering what people are thinking about in terms of trying to get more school space. And the last part of that question is, I had heard that there was supposed to be a park put in as a part of the development between that 14th and 18th Street development. And there was some dispute over the timing of that park. The developer wanted to do it like after phase 3. And residents were trying to get it earlier to take some of the pressure off of Hamilton Park. And I was wondering if you have any update on that and the exact location, because I've heard different things about that. Someone was telling me it was in that little sliver of space between the ramp that goes down to the tunnel and the, you know, that warehouse, which I thought was odd. It's currently used like by the Port Authority or something. Didn't seem quite to be big enough, but you know, if the city can get them to put more park space in over there, I think that would help everybody in downtown. So that's kind of the litany I have. And again, I appreciate you coming out and sticking around for this.
Sure. Thank you, Peter. So I'll go through those. So first on the road repaving, we have 2nd and 3rd Street on our list. They are very high on the list. I can't make promises because I don't know how much money we're going to get to do road repaving, but I think the odds of 2nd at least getting done in this next year are very high, given that the condition of 2nd Street right now between Brunswick and Marcelli's. For north of the Holland Tunnel, I think the school is the planning is not sort of predetermining. They're getting community input, and again, I think the odds are very, very good that they're going to require a school up there. So I think you're almost certainly going to see a school and a light rail station as the main things to get built as sort of community infrastructure. And then in terms of the park, there's sort of 2 different parks up there. There is what's called the Cole Street Park. That's an 1.5 acre park between, I believe, 16th and 17th between Coles and Jersey. That is currently under construction, and that will be probably finished roughly the fall of 2021. What I think you're referring to is in the development just across the street from that, which is that old Emerson factory, which right next to the Holland Tunnel ramp as you're leaving the city and going up on the ramp. That is like a 4-stage project, and there is a small open space as part of that project. I forget the exact square footage, but it had originally been as part of phase 4, which basically means it gets built at the end. So if the developer takes a decade to build that whole project, you don't get the open space until a decade later. There had been a push to get that phase bumped up so it would happen sooner. I do not believe that it was successful, but let me go back and double check. I'll send an email to you guys, and Eric can email the group. I'll just double check what happened with that because it was at the planning board a couple months ago. I think there might have been one other thing, but I'm forgetting what it was. So Peter, if I didn't answer, you can put it in the chat.
Like on that space that was, you know, development for Mako, you know, is there a thought of putting, you know, some schooling or some other general public space rather than just residential, you know, or any other places where, I mean, there's land is at a premium down here, obviously. So just wondering about that.
So there's not like an immediate plan, but I'm very open, right? And we'll have to get creative because we have to find the money to do it if we're going to take it for public use. But I'm very, very open to what people think could or should go there, and potentially we can have a much better use than the 30-year-old project that was supposed to be built in the 80s.
And the last one is that, were you going to take a public comment period on the marijuana dispensaries, or what? You're just looking for feedback, like, you know?
I'm going to host public meetings about it in March. You know, I can't promise if the city decides to push a piece of legislation forward sooner than that, then I'll let you know, and then there'll be formal comment before the city council. But my plan would be to hold public meetings in March about it. Cool. All right, Nisha, I see you have your hand up.
Hey, thanks, James. So I have a general question and a very specific one about my block. So I'm wondering, with all the construction that's going on, and many of us are home nonstop now. So what oversight or what sort of attention is paid to how long construction sites get the no parking signs put up? So I feel like the one on my block, I swear it's been since before the pandemic started. So that's the general question, is like, and every time it's running out at the end of the month, I'm like, woohoo, I can park in front of my house again. And then it goes up for another month. So that's the general question. And then the related question to my block, so the construction for a condo building at 335th Street. So they have this handy little bucket with cement in it where they have a sign with the parking thing that says no parking here. And I swear they keep moving it further. So I'm just wondering, so now there's a dumpster, but last time I checked, it was like at least 5 spots that they were taken up for construction. So does anyone go out and check on that they're actually putting the signs where they're supposed to?
So I appreciate your frustration, having had the house next to me as a gut renovation all the time. So we do not, as a city, do a good job of oversight. But I'll say, and I put my contact information, I'll put it in the chat, but awesome. Anyone can reach out to me, and then we can ask for the parking authority to come and check, or the parking department and the construction company. So okay. if a project has been going on for years and they're stalled, but they're still taking the no parking signs, we can ask the parking authority to review. And same thing is their permit will tell them how much space they're allowed to have, okay. But there isn't somebody who comes and really checks to make sure that they're being honest. So if they're taking a lot more space than you think is right, we can ask them to come and check and reposition those posts.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll put the contact info in the chat now. So
awesome, thank you, James.
Yeah. Hey, Vic, Daniel, you got a question?
Hey, how are you, James?
I'm good.
Question for as far as the plan for flooding. I know that Jersey City is a flood zone, and we all sign in for living in it. But they've been doing a lot of construction on, or they'll like over the pandemic, they've done a lot of like tearing the street up, closing it, tearing it up, closing it. Is any of that stuff related to mitigating the flooding aspect? Because Nisha's my neighbor; she lives next door, and sometimes, although we live downtown, we don't live on the waterfront. And you're a block away from us, so you would know. Our corner gets flooded at times pretty often. Sometimes I think it's gonna hit my tenant's unit, but thank God it hasn't. And I even have I have 2 sub pumps. So like, I don't even, I'm wondering, like, I hope that all of this tearing up the street is doing something for it. And then the capacity I don't know if the capacity has been increased, because we do have this, the construction project that Nisha's talking about. Nisha can correct me, maybe it's 6 units or something like that on 5th Street. It's like they took advantage of the R5, it's floors or whatnot. Yeah. So I just want to know, like, all in all, like, as far as flooding for you and for us, right? Like, what's the city doing? I know it's not, the whole infrastructure has to be changed, but you follow.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple different pieces. So I think the first, which is the most exciting, and I think particularly for folks on 5th Street, is the city has put forward funding through the MUA for a water pump at 6th Street by the river. And in essence, what that will do is, in storms where we're flooded, the pump will basically be able to push water out of the sewers and I think into the river and basically create a significantly more capacity. So once that is built, and I'm hoping in the next year or two it will be finished, we will, I think 6th Street, 5th Street, 7th Street should see significantly less flooding because of that pump. When you're seeing construction in the roads, it obviously could be a variety of things, but we are trying to do a lot of different new sewer infrastructure. So I know new sewer came on 4th Street a couple years ago. I believe there's a new one on 5th Street recently. So oftentimes you can see, if you're interested in what the plan is on your street, you can email me and I can basically get the MUA to tell me if maybe you did have a new sewer recently, maybe it's scheduled for the next couple of years. I have said I don't know off the top of my head every sewer project, but I can get that information from the MUA. And then I think more broadly, we want to think about ways to kind of capture rain to get it out, keep it out of the sewers. So the R5, which you guys all worked on extremely hard, does include lot coverage standards and some green building standards to really encourage people to have some green space to basically kind of try to soak up some water before it gets into the sewers. We did as a city about, in the spring, we passed new stormwater rules. So any new development over, I think, 5,000 square feet has to put in green infrastructure. And I think it was a great thing actually planning department pushed and we instituted. So I think we're still moving forward on a lot of those pieces. And you know, it's still not gonna, we're never gonna be in a flood-free zone for those of us in the village, right? It's, you know, we're built over an old creek, I think, a lot of us are. And so, you know, we're sort of trying to put in do the right things and, you know, I think we'll still have some flooding here.
Thank you.
Sure. Here's a question from Yesenia.
Okay, I did not mute myself fast enough. So great meeting you, Councilman Solomon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining today's call. And I think I'm sort of pigging back off Danny's comment regarding the water and the sewer situation. Unfortunately, we had a water main break this week on the corner of Colgate and
First, yeah.
And there was very little communication by, there was very little to no communication from the fire officials, the police officials, Suez, as well as JCMUA. We didn't have water for most of the day. And like Danny said, a tremendous amount of breaking of the ground and sort of all this work taking place. And we have zero visibility of what's happening. What caused the water main break? How can we avoid this moving forward? And then more importantly, as residents, thankfully, some of us do not have medical conditions, but for those who do have medical conditions, how are their needs being met when water is being shut off unexpectedly? And so I think as a community, we need to come together to really focus on our water and sewer issues instead of focusing on rebuilding and creating more housing if the proper infrastructure is not in place. So I think, I don't know where this stands on your priority, and I apologize for not asking initially. You know, this would be one of the I'm sort of new to the community and joining these calls, but I'm very concerned as a property owner. I'm very concerned with the lack of attention, the lack of communication, very little sort of understanding of where this falls in the priority for government officials as well as responsible entities that should be focusing on addressing these larger infrastructure issues. And it just seems like the conversation keeps going towards building more and you know, redevelopment. But if your basic needs are not being met, then I think that should be the priority as a whole.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, that comments are I think spot on. You know, I'm continuing to work to get better communication from Suez when a water main breaks. They should have provided, if water was out for more than, you know, I believe 8 hours, they should have a water tank there to provide water for people. And because they didn't, that I didn't know that, and that's very concerning. So I will call them and I will ask them to understand what happened and why they didn't follow what I believe is their procedure, which is they're supposed to bring water to folks if you're out of water for that long.
I think it was a hair under, James, is what you're gonna hear.
Sure. Okay, and I have been fighting with them about notifications. They have finally put me on their notifications list, so I will start to receive them. But I had not for the first 3 years, and it was a long-running fight. And you can Oprah my nasty emails to Suez. So in terms of the broader infrastructure question, I think we're working to try to improve our rules so that anytime a new building comes, they are doing a much better job of providing the infrastructure that's needed. And so when it comes to bigger projects, things like schools, but when it comes to smaller projects, sewers, and you know, stormwater collection and all the types of things that we need so that they're not overburdening the systems that are here. So I think it's far from where we need to be, and it's a huge work in progress. But I think your thinking is exactly right, and I try to kind of have that thinking in mind whenever I'm thinking about the kind of policies we need as a city.
Thanks. I'll take this opportunity to send you an email on this because I
please do.
And I'd love to continue to work with you on that. Thanks again.
Yep.
Yeah, just to echo what Yesenia was saying is, I was surprised, honestly, James. You know, the responsiveness was there, right? Like I noticed it 6:15 in the morning, walking the dog. By 6:35, there was a Suez van there doing something, right? But I've always been able to go onto a Suez, you know, like Google it and find whatever it is, their Twitter page or something, and there's an update, and there was nothing. It was literally like ghosted the entire day. So yeah, I agree. The communication was pretty poor, and we were looking for, you know, because we lost water. I don't know what it was, maybe 5 hours or so, but we were looking for like, do we need to have, is there a boil water advisory? Like that's the important stuff that you want to know, right? And there was nothing out there on that.
Yeah, I will speak to them about what their policies are and why either bad policies or why it wasn't why they weren't followed.
Thank you.
Sure. I don't know if I see the hands up. I think the folks asked questions. Any last questions on my end? All righty. Let me just close if I can. I just want to give a quick shout out to Eric and Peter. They don't know this, but they didn't know I was going to do this, but they helped shovel out some neighbors in the last big blizzard. Some of our older neighbors on 2nd Street and 3rd Street, they went out and did it as a big favor because they're great guys in our neighborhood. So thank you both for doing that and taking care of your neighbors.
It's all Peter, man.
Thank you, thank you.
I didn't want to say Eric couldn't do it. I was, you know, but no, Eric did most of the work.
I would appreciate you saying that, but look, it's neighbors looking out for neighbors. So, you know, we want everyone to care for the community and care for their neighbors. So if any of you know somebody that needs help, just ping us. We'll either do it ourselves or find someone that can.
All right, everybody, it was great to see you. Stay safe. Don't hesitate.
Thank you so much. Thanks for staying over, everybody. This was like huge. Really appreciate it. If there are any follow-up questions that you come to your head, info@jcvillage.org, or just email me or call me or whatever, and we'll liaise with Councilman Solomon. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.